Hello, welcome to this webinar on energy management systems for small to mid-sized companies. Thank you very much for joining us today. As a quick note, this webinar will be recorded along with any questions and uploaded to PennTap's YouTube page either later today or early next week. So please note as you make any comments, there is a recording. Today's webinar will discuss three topics in energy management systems. The first will be a review of the benefits of an energy management system. The second topic will be going over the recognition programs that are available for energy management systems. These include both certification programs and non-certification programs. Finally, we will touch on PennTap services, both through energy management systems as well as non-energy management system services. First, we will be going over the benefits of an energy management system. From here on, I will be calling energy management systems EnMS. So if you hear that acronym, that is the topic I will be discussing. So why are we talking about energy management? One big key with energy is that it encompasses a whole host of problems throughout the world. So energy is a big player in air pollution, both greenhouse gas emissions and criteria pollutions, but it also plays a role in providing enough food for everyone throughout the world, as well as the poverty rate within the world. So if we're able to reduce the amount of energy required by each individual and each company, we'll be able to improve the world overall. So that's energy management on a whole worldwide global scale. But energy also affects your company specifically on an individual company level. The single most impactful or recognizable method is the financial implication of energy. Most companies will have a very high relative energy cost. So even a small company might have $10,000 in energy bills, which seems relatively small to some other big companies, but that $10,000 is an important amount of money to them, that if they could reduce that $10,000 to say $8,000, that's $2,000 to free up elsewhere. In addition to the pure cost of energy, there's also risks involved with using energy. The first risk is that the cost of energy could skyrocket quickly. One very recent example of that is the oil prices in the early 2000s increased greatly, kind of out of nowhere, that many businesses were at a risk. If they were using oil, all of a sudden oil prices were doubling and tripling quickly. And just as quickly, they reduced down 5 years later. It was a quick, abrupt changeover. So with that little shakeover, while it was a relatively short amount of time, some companies became more efficient during the time frame, some companies became less efficient. So it had a big effect on how your business worked, especially versus competitors that may have been using oil or may have been using natural gas the whole time. Another key risk is that if energy becomes scarce, especially in a specific type of energy or type of fuel, your business might be at risk of curtailing operations. So if energy gets cut back 20%, you either have the opportunity to reduce operation 20% or save 20% of energy. You'd be much better off having saved that energy beforehand and work backwards. And also, just a quick note that any money you save on energy is purely profit for your company. There's no investment needed and very little taxes on the savings of it. So it goes right into the profits of the company. Next is a sustainability aspect of energy usage. I'd say the majority of major companies right now have sustainability programs put together. They're putting out their sustainability reports with a carbon footprint and all the great important things they're doing for the world. Energy is a huge part of the carbon footprint. It's the majority in almost every company I know of that puts it together. And when you have targets to reduce your carbon footprint, energy is the best place to start looking for those reductions. Then finally, the energy has an impact on the overall economy surrounding your facility. If you're able to implement projects that help the local economy and local contractors while saving you money, it will help your business overall, because almost every business is interconnected within its own community at this point. That if the community is doing better, people within the business are doing better as well. So it'll help spread out the economic savings in a more localized manner. So all of those things come together to show that it is an important aspect of your business to have an energy management system. So what is an energy management system? I'm going to share with you two separate definitions of energy management systems from two distinct sources. So the first source is the International Organization for Standardization. It's commonly referred to as ISO. And I'll give you one moment to read the definition that's on the screen. So the biggest key pieces of this definition is that it's based around energy, and there's a policy, and there are objectives that you're working towards. Next, we have the United States Department of Energy's definition of an energy management system. It's slightly different. Again, I'll give a moment to read that definition. So the biggest difference is that ISO is saying set an objective and work towards that objective. The Department of Energy is very much focused towards decreasing energy intensity and reducing environmental impacts. I'm reading those both directly from the definition, but a really large key with decreasing energy intensity is that you're not working towards decreasing the energy used at the site, you're actually working towards decreasing it per widget produced or per person work hour. You are making that goal, making a more complex key performance indicator that you'll be working towards reduction. And this specifically includes that you'll be decreasing it. So those are two important definitions. And as we talk about the recognition programs available, you'll kind of see that the ISO is a framework for achieving goals, whereas the Department of Energy very much pushes you to actually reduce energy. So first we're going to talk about sort of the three levels that companies are today. This first company we're talking about is one that just ignores energy costs. Over time, the energy costs are just going to continuously rise as either things break or inefficient equipment is purchased to replace older equipment. Just in general, people aren't paying attention to energy. And when no one's paying attention to any aspect of a business, it gets more expensive. It just continuously goes up and up and up over time. Next is the project-based approach. So if we're starting in year zero, someone, say a vice president, will come down and say, our costs are rising. We need to get a handle on this. Energy has increased 5%. It's going through its budget. Let's get a handle on this. And someone like a maintenance manager comes up with a project. They say, okay, we're going to do this project today. We're going to work on it for the next year or so. Our energy will be reduced. I'm going to use lighting as a quick, easy example. That's a low-hanging fruit. Every company goes out, does the lighting. Their costs have reduced. So that's a great thing. They're now down 5% lower than where they were before. But in this model, they've stopped paying attention again. And so things break, actions happen, new things are purchased without paying attention to energy, and you have the costs rising again. So they're rising back up, they creep back up, and they hit the budget. And that same person who before said, hey, we need to get a handle on electricity, is coming back and saying, okay, we need to do this again. Why are we doing this again? Okay, what can we do? And again, some miscellaneous steps are occur. They probably take a look at their heating system now or their compressed air system now, and the costs lower. But again, at the same point, they kind of stop and take a step back from energy and focus on other things, and costs start to rise back up. So you have this cyclical pattern where costs are being lowered, then rising, lowered, then rising, but there's no coordinated, thoughtful response to it. This is generally where I'd say most companies are today at this point. They get an idea for a project, they do a payback period, they figure out how much will this save us if we invest X amount of dollars, and they move forward with it. But then they take some time to figure out other projects. And by no means is it a bad place to be, but as we'll discuss with the next slide of a company using an energy management system, it is continuously having the costs rise again. Whereas an energy management system, the first step will be to take some time to plan out what actions will occur. And in the worst case scenario, which we're showing here, is that your energy consumption may rise during that time while you're doing the planning. People have taken a break from doing all the projects, so it might rise. I think in most cases, we'd probably say that energy is not changed during that time frame. So it's just kind of a steady state. We're doing a lot of thoughtful planning work. So next, what you do is, with all that planning, identify what are the simple, easy energy saving solutions. So this would include those projects like the lighting and HVAC we talked about earlier, but it would also include changing the culture and people's behaviors at the site. So one easy example is that an air compressor might get left on every day. All night, it gets left on, just basically operating to seal up the leaks in the facility. A change here might be working with the culture and the behavioral issues of individuals to make sure that that air compressor gets shut off every night. It's not necessarily the simple, easiest thing to do to convince someone, but if you have it in a plan and you have it documented of how much it'll save, it'll help move along that process. So once you've gotten all those simple energy saving measures completed, then you'll spend some time working on what else you can do. So you're not going for the simple measures anymore. You're going for maybe the medium difficulty savings. And this might get into, how do you work your process? Does your process go through an oven at 500 degrees, but now we're going to take some time to see if maybe we can get the same results if the oven is at 450 degrees, and work through some of those different scenarios. They're a little bit more difficult than the lighting examples, but they don't take a huge change overall in your process. But long term, once you've worked on these simple and medium style projects, the company is now ready to work on some of the harder projects, because at this point, everyone in the company's been through a project to save energy, and they've gotten on board with it. They've seen the company reduce energy overall, and everyone's more available to help. So these can be the more difficult savings, like purchasing new equipment to replace the old inefficient equipment. But you're at this point where you can maximize that efficiency if you've bought the new equipment. So you can see the 3 examples here where kind of the first one, just energy costs are out of control, no one's paying attention to it. Then in the middle example is they're going up, they're going down, they're in a cyclical manner that continues on for a long time. But then the energy management approach pushes and makes sure those savings continue. The costs don't go back up, and if they go back up, you've got a plan to cover that. So what is an energy management system that helps to keep all those costs down? So the first most important piece is that it's a strategic plan. You're not taking 10 minutes one day to figure out what potential projects could be done. You're taking hours to work with different pieces throughout your facility to figure out how to work on the project. And it's strategic because you're not just grabbing any energy savings potential out there that's possible. You're looking towards the future as well. So if buying new equipment will help both energy and the process process output, you'll be working towards those pieces as well. One key is it's tailorable for all organizations. So energy management systems can be as complex as you'd like it to be, or down to a very kind of basic, simple floor. Both programs with ISO and the Department of Energy put a minimum number of complexity on your process, but really you're able to make a lot of decisions. One quick example is, what will you include in your energy policy? There's very basic level of what you'll include, but you can include a lot more or a lot less. And you'll also be able to include, how often do we review that energy policy? It integrates well with any other management system you have at the site. So the general framework of any management system is the same. A lot of people talk about the plan, do, check, act cycle. You could think of the energy management systems in much the same way. We generally find that if your company already has the ISO 14001 energy environmental management system, the energy management system pairs very nicely with that. For environmental outputs, many things are linked right up to energy. For example, an environmental management system is already recording the natural gas usage from a boiler for your air permit purposes. That process can fit right into the energy management system. Next, it'll give you a framework for how you deal with energy. Some companies, when they're starting at the very beginning and they want to tackle energy, they're not quite sure where to start. There's such a broad category of work that can be completed to save energy that the energy management system will put everything in a framework to help you figure out, what do I want to start with? And it will very much focus you on a step-by-step approach. And the Department of Energy has tools that can help you track and measure this progress. As I mentioned earlier, with the energy intensity being the key, it's not always as easy as saying, okay, we've used this much energy this month, let's compare it to the next month. For large complex facilities, there's a whole production cycle moving in and out of that is greatly affecting how much energy is used. The Department of Energy has tools that can help you implement the production cycle in with your energy usage. One really simple example is that you might double in energy usage one month, but it's because you've tripled in your production output. And most people would say that's a good thing. You've created a significant amount of more widgets per energy than before, and you've helped your bottom line with that much production. So now we're looking to incorporate energy into all business decisions. And that is a big change for some facilities, but some facilities have already been doing this without even knowing about it. Their engineering staff has been comparing the existing energy use versus the proposed energy use for decades now. And in those sort of companies, this is really to push it up a little bit higher. So first we're going to talk about what I'll call the internal benefits of an energy management system. The first one being, you're going to save energy. Very basic goal that most companies have is save energy. But linked to that, you're saving dollars. And that's really what a lot of the accountants and the business aspect of the company want to see is energy goes down so that you can save money. Next, it'll be easier to meet legal requirements, especially those environmental regulatory rules. Once you have this energy management system in place, especially linked up to the environmental management systems, it'll be easier to prove you've met the regulatory requirements. Next will be to improve staff well-being. And this gets into really two aspects. The first one is that generally when you wind up saving energy, you're improving the facility cleanliness overall. So an easy example might be any combustion sources. You're getting rid of the fumes as you're working on the energy management system. The second is you're likely improving efficiency. So you're working to help the operators of the equipment know how to operate it within a specific set of circumstances, and have things be more clear for them, make their lives easier. And then finally, you're trying to improve productivity. So within the background of this whole piece is you're trying to get more widgets out the door. And if you can care less about energy on that project by project basis, you'll have more time for the projects within your productivity schedule. Then there are pieces of an energy management system that I think of as external benefits. They're outward looking towards your customers. The first is branding, in that you can show you are a company that is very focused on energy. And this is key for a lot of large companies now. As I mentioned earlier, large companies have been pushing towards their sustainability goals for probably 5 to 10 years at this point. Many companies are starting to look down their supply chain. So how can they reduce greenhouse gas emissions from suppliers and then moving down the chain? So maybe you don't supply to a large company right now, but you supply to someone who supplies to that large company. Or you might supply to someone like the Department of Defense, who has a very keen focus on energy management. Having this energy management system in place will be key to showing those facilities, yes, we have our energy under control. And the most important thing, or the biggest thing you want to do, is have that in place before they ask. It's much easier to do that than afterwards. Then you'll also have increased competitiveness, because if you're reducing your costs, you're now able to reduce the charge you send to your customer. That if all of a sudden you get into a need for a pricing war, you've had reduced costs, and those can carry over to the customer. You'll need to meet your shareholder requirements. So whoever's in charge of the direction of the company, I can't emphasize enough how much better it feels for a company to be able to answer a question before the shareholders ask for it. I worked with a company recently that we talked about doing greenhouse gas carbon footprinting, and she was wavering back and forth whether her company would be interested. And just that week, someone came in and from the stakeholder group and asked, hi, what are we doing with greenhouse gas emissions? So it was much easier for her to say, oh, we have this project we're thinking about doing in place, let's move forward with it, rather than being kind of caught flat-footed and not knowing what to do with the project yet. So she was able to answer that question much better than if we hadn't spoken beforehand. Next up, we'll reduce the carbon footprint, which again is a great branding mechanism for a company. Putting that on a website looks great. And then it'll reduce the risks. So you'll have less exposure to energy costs rising exponentially, or an energy shortage. So the Department of Energy has pulled together some information about energy savings from 4 different types of facilities. The first one, all the way to the left, is companies doing business as usual. They save about 1% in energy per year. Business as usual will incorporate both that first group I talked about that doesn't pay attention to energy, as well as companies doing the project-by-project basis. So the majority of companies in the United States are grouped into that business as usual group. The second group is industry leaders. So these are throughout different industries, these are the people doing the best work in those industries. They're pushing forward, but without the energy management system, they're saving about 2.5% in energy per year. These would be a lot of the name brand companies within your industry. It'll be different for each industry, but they're the well-known ones. They have the resources to tackle energy. But we're going to contrast those with companies that have the energy management system in place. The first group are those with ISO 50001 in place. ISO 50001, we'll get into more detail in a little bit, but that's the name brand standard for energy management systems. And they're saving about 4% a year. So that is a significant increase from the industry leaders, and it is just a massive increase from business as usual. Those companies have the framework in place to work towards those reductions. Then finally, there's another group called the enterprise-wide superior energy performance approach, and that's through the Department of Energy. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. And they're up at 5% energy savings per year as a group. So you can see that even the industry leaders with all the resources available to them aren't pushing for energy savings quite as much as those that are getting certified to these energy management systems. And to even highlight that in more detail, we're going to talk about some of the savings from those energy management system companies. So companies with ISO 50001 have been saving 12.9% over a 3-year period. So that 4% above isn't a fluke. It's a long-term solution that they've been working on. And the superior energy performance facilities have been saving over $400,000 a year. And I like to look at these combined in that you're saving a high percentage of the energy and a high amount of energy, a high dollar amount. So some of the companies that are doing an even more in-depth review, rather than focusing on one facility, but focusing on company-wide facility, are up to $600,000 a year. Now, the one thing I always like to caution with this is these sound like nice big dollars. But really, one of the keys is how much money are they spending to get that? It's one thing to save $600,000 if you're spending millions of dollars to save it. But with these systems, we're seeing payback periods of less than 2 years. So that means not only are they a high percentage savings, a high dollar savings, but they're not investing that much money into getting those savings. The 2-year payback period, I think, is something that any company would jump at to see. Sort of any project with 2-year payback period. That's a fantastically quick mechanism of saving money. So now we're going to use examples in a different manner. We're going to highlight 2 companies, the first being Schneider Electric, and how their sites with an energy management system compare to their sites without an energy management system. And for those of you not familiar with Schneider Electric, it is a company incredibly focused on energy. They make circuit boards and controls for energy, but they also have a world-class energy and sustainability consulting company attached to it. So they are a company that's incredibly focused on energy. Without any ISO 50001 or SCP, they're saving 11.5%. And that's from 2011 to 2015. I think most companies would find that great. However, once you incorporate in their energy management systems to it, it jumps to a savings of 19%. And that's not over a small sample of facilities. The first group had 30 sites, while the second group has 36 sites. So they have a wide range of sites, but from their data, it specifically shows that energy management systems have helped them save another 8%. And one key is they have the same incentives and resources and mechanisms throughout those sites being in the same corporation, but the energy management system with that framework has really pushed them to achieve something great. Next, we'll be talking about 3M. And 3M has saved 6.5% in energy from 2012 to 2015. That's over a total of 257 sites. So it's a wide range of sites that have come together to get 6.5% over a 3-year period. And that's a really good savings amount. That lines up pretty well with the industry leaders we talked about earlier. However, when you incorporate the energy management system piece into it, it's jumped to 10% in savings over those 3 years. And that's a big change. That's 18 sites versus the 257 sites. So you can really tell that with the same incentives and resources, the energy management system is definitely pushing people further. It's getting them to decrease energy more. So now we're going to talk about the different recognition programs under EnMS. There are 3 we're going to talk about today. The first one is 50,001 Ready, and that's what I'd call the entry-level program to an EnMS right now. Then we'll talk about ISO 50001, which is the most well-known version. It was the first energy management system to really come out and make an impact. Then finally, we'll talk about the Superior Energy Performance Certification, which is given by the Department of Energy after you've completed certification with the ISO 50001. So first is 50,001 Ready, and this is a new program started in 2017 to help sites work towards the energy management systems. It's a self-guided approach to your site. And by self-guided, it walks you through 25 individual steps for completing the energy management system. And on your own as a facility, you say, yes, we have met this requirement. You don't need a third party to come in to agree with you. And it provides tools. I mentioned the 25 steps. There's a Navigator tool, I'll show you a little bit in more detail in a second, that walks you through those 25 steps. It also provides you an energy performance indicator tool. And the energy performance indicator tool is able to help you take energy production and weather data to create energy performance indicators. So you're looking more in depth than kilowatt hours per month. You're looking more into kilowatt hours per widget produced, or say million British thermal units of natural gas per heating degree day in your area. And so why use this program? This is a great way to get that framework to help you save energy and save money. And it will help push you and move you towards all the sections of the energy management system. Also, it's a nice way of receiving recognition from the United States Department of Energy. Not only will you get a certificate that you can show to customers, but you'll also be on the Department of Energy's website to help promote your facility overall. So as I mentioned, it was new from 2017, and there's some improvements coming in shortly on the website. So the Ready Navigator is a website put together for the 50,001 Ready program in general. It gives you 25 tasks. They're broken down into 4 categories that you self-certify. I can't speak highly enough of how well the Department of Energy pulled together this website, that each task comes with worksheets that can help you complete the tasks. It comes with examples, and it comes with help videos that you can watch that also include a quiz. So they've really given you a wealth of knowledge to be able to work through this task. 2 other great things they've done is, number 1, you can explore the Navigator without ever logging into it. So if you don't want to take on the program, you can look through it, pull out their worksheets, pull out their examples without ever logging onto their system. You can be a guest forever working on that, and you'll get a wealth of knowledge without actually completing this process. So I think once you get in there, explore it a couple times, you'll actually want to sign up for an account and work forward through it. The second thing is that DOE has set up the program so they are not getting any company-specific information. I'm going to use creating an energy policy as a nice, easy example. The Navigator will ask you, have you set up a policy with this information included? And you'll be certifying yes. my energy policy has included that information. The big key is you don't have to put your energy policy into the system. Your energy policy can have as much proprietary information as you want in it because DOE is not seeing that. So it's a really helpful way of keeping your 50001 ready application separate than any of your proprietary information. Next, within this program, they offer an energy performance indicator light program. So there's an energy performance indicator program, which is a very large, complex spreadsheet that is available from DOE on their website that you are more than welcome to take a look at and download. I really like this light program because it offers you a footprint tool that then you can just copy and paste from. So you keep the Excel file on your desktop with all your information, copy all of the relevant data into a tab on the screen. You can see here it says paste here. And then this website will take all that information and go through a regression analysis. And you can put in a whole host of other factors. So I usually think of production schedule, production output, the schedule the site is operating, and the heating or cooling degree days for a site as the most relevant variables. However, DOE has set this up incredibly nicely that you can put in any variables you think are important. So you can break it down that while most people think of production schedule as one number, you've put out 20,000 widgets. You can break this down and have 10,000 of widget A, 5,000 widget B, 3,000 widget C, and so forth. And this program will be able to pull that together to figure out which one is the most important, which one's having the biggest impact. It'll be able to compare that production schedule with the weather schedule. And maybe your production is incredibly steady, and the weather's actually having a bigger role in your site than you realized. So this regression analysis will do a fantastic job of helping you figure out what are those energy performance indicators you want to focus on. And you'll be tracking the indicators, not energy use overall, and you'll be setting your goals based on those indicators. Again, I want to point out that the Department of Energy has decided that they do not want to keep this information. So once you've pasted information into this ENPA Lite program, it will keep that data temporarily. It might put it in a cookie on your computer, but that's it. The DOE servers are not saving this information. DOE has none of that, none of your production schedule, none of the weather schedule. They're only offering this tool for your use. Nothing proprietary will be staying at the site. So just as a quick review, when this presentation is available to you, we have links towards the resources. The Navigator is available at that website, and the ENPI Lite tool is available at that site. The Navigator will also point you towards the ENPI Lite tool. So now we're going to talk about ISO 50001. And ISO 50001 is really the main standard people think of with an energy management system. So it's from the International Organization for Standardization, which is ISO. It takes the systematic approach with the framework that you'll follow. It's based on the plan, check, do, act cycle that most people are familiar with. And it's a model for continuous improvement. So you're really pushing to improve each and every month. To be fully ISO 50001 certified, you need to have a third party come in to certify the facility, and they need to be ANSI approved. So one thing about the 50001 Ready program that's wonderful is you're self-certifying. DOE will take a quick review of it, but you don't need a third party to come in and take a look. ISO 50001 does require that third party to come in and review. So it generally follows the plan, do, check, act cycle, but PennTap has changed it a little bit to follow the mechanism of the rule. So the first beginning part is there are a set of general requirements that you'll have to follow. One of the very basics is what will be within this energy management system? Will it be one site, two sites, or just a process line? Next, we'll talk about the management responsibility. So any sort of management system needs someone from the management board to be responsible for it. And this will be to make sure there are proper incentives and accountability at a site. Without incentives and accountability, nothing gets done. Next, we'll be working to develop an energy policy, and this section of the rule shows you, this section of the standard shows you what should be included in the energy management policy. Then we'll have a planning section, which is broken down into a couple pieces. How do you review energy? How do you develop a baseline, which is where is energy being used today? We talked a little bit about the energy performance indicators. This energy planning piece will help you select and monitor those performance indicators. Then we'll be talking about implementation. And implementation is more than going out and doing projects at the site. It really gets to the heart of how do we communicate this energy management system to the employees of the site as well as everyone else. So we want the employees to know they're responsible for energy overall, but we want to help spread the word to the customers and contractors that come on the site about what this site's doing with energy. And it'll include training of operators and people in procurement. It's a large, that's one of the places where people spend the most time. Implementation version step. Then we'll have a checking step, which is to make sure that everything was implemented properly. You'll want to take some time to review that everything's making sense. Hopefully at that time you've been tracking the performance indicators for a couple of months, and you can make sure that everything's moving down and progressing properly. Then finally you'll have a management review. And again, I can't stress enough at how important it is to have incentives and accountability from management to get things done. The management review will help to make sure that the program is moving properly. On the flip side of that, though, the management review is also a chance for people who are working on this energy management system to brag and show off to their management about how great we've done with this system. You want to take that chance to say, hi Vice President, I was responsible for us saving 5% of costs. We saved $10,000 last year. This is how great of a job we've done. And you've got that captive audience. And one quick note is that the management review can be done a whole host of ways. Most people think of it as the management of the site coming in and kind of having a 2 to 3 day meeting where they walk around and see everything that's done. It actually doesn't have to be that at all. You can do parts of it remotely. You can do presentations. Some companies prefer to have, say, 8 one-hour meetings rather than 1 8-hour meeting, and you're provided that flexibility. You can even have the management review where the manager's been an integral part of this whole process. So his or her review at the end is much smaller than most other companies because they know what's going on. They're going back and confirming those steps, but they don't need to be taught from the whole beginning. So next we're going to talk about the Superior Energy Performance Program. And this is from the Department of Energy after you've gotten your ISO 50001 certification. It's a voluntary facility-wide certification program. There's guidance and tools to help you dive deeper into the energy management systems. But this does require a second third-party verification. And I do want to quickly note that while many third parties will do both ISO 50001 and SCP certification, there is a chance that the company you work with will only be ISO 50001. So this might wind up being a second party, but it is worth it for getting national recognition from the Department of Energy on both their website as well as information you can share with your site. And there are a couple different levels to the SCP certification. So there's 3 levels, all that require a specific level of energy savings. As we noted with those definitions earlier, DOE is really pushing to reduce energy intensity. It's not setting goals and working towards them. They say we want to reduce a specific percentage. In addition, DOE has a subset of best practices that you'll be working for points at those best practices. If you are able to save the percentage of energy over the time frames in the graph, so for example, if you saved 5% in 3 years, or in a little bit less than 3 years, you'd meet their savings definitions. And it increases up to a 10-year period that has saved 16%. So if you've gotten that, and you've gotten less than 40 best practice points, you'll be awarded a silver SCP certification. For gold, it's the same numbers of savings, but you've done 40 best practice points. And then finally, there's a platinum that has you doing 60 best practice points. And that's really the top energy award you can get within the whole range of energy management systems right now is a SCP Platinum. So today's webinar is specifically about how does this work for small and mid-sized entities. So you don't need to go for the certification programs to be able to get the benefits of the energy management system. And that 50,001 Ready program is a fantastic place to start. It not only gives you the framework and performance indicators in a nice, simple manner, but it helps you work towards those benefits. So it'll get you approved up to a point, and then at a later date, you can figure out if you want to go for the 50,001, for the ISO 50,001 or not. So really, you're getting the benefits of those programs, but without that cost to certify it. And so we're still incorporating energy efficiency and energy intensity into all aspects of your company. However, you're not spending the money for the certification. And that's really the key, is you can work towards this point, especially with 50,001 Ready, get all those benefits of reductions, and then you'll be at a nice point where you can decide, is getting certified worth the price of the third-party certification? And I'd say that's a fantastic place to be, because you can take that moment to think, what are the branding recognitions of this versus the cost? And truly, for each company and each year, that's going to be different. But if everything works the way it should, over time, the benefits of being ISO 50001 certified are going to increase in value. The cost of getting that certification is going to decrease in value. So at some point, you'll be at a stage where the branding values are better, are worth more than the certification, and you'll be ready to jump in. If you've done none of the work at that point, you'll have a year or two spent to get to that point. But if we can work early and get there, you'll be able to jump right when that value switch changes. So now we're going to talk about Penn Tap services. And we'll discuss Penn Tap services for energy management systems first. Here's an outline of what we'll be talking about. So we have 5 services we work on for energy management systems specifically. So the first one is an energy review, and we'll come in and see how the operation works, review all of your utility bills, and work together to make that energy performance indicator. We're taking a look at what are the most important things at your site that are related to energy. How do we develop the benchmark, and how do we move forward with that? So the energy review is a very early stage of figuring out where you are today. And I will explain specifically where you are with energy today. The next step is a gap assessment, which focuses on where are you today compared to the 50,001 Ready, ISO 50001, or SCP standards. Have you met 90% of the requirements, or have you only met 10% of them? And this is meant to be a high-level review where we'd come in and take a look at something like the energy policy and say, yes, your energy policy looks great for an energy management system outlook. Or we'd say, here are the couple things that you would need to fix to get the energy policy in place. Next, we have the implementation step, which is a great follow-up to the gap assessment. So once we've figured out where are the gaps in your program, we'll come through to help implement them. And this is where we go from the high-level gap assessment down to the more nitty-gritty detail. So in the gap assessment, we might say, your energy policy needs to include more of X. When we get into the implementation stage, it'll be working with you to incorporate X as a paragraph or two within that energy policy. So it's the much more hands-on, detailed approach to getting things done. And this can work with the 50001 Ready, ISO 50001, or SCP, and each will be a different level because of the differences in the program. Then we have training, where PennTap can come in and provide a much more detailed version of this webinar to talk about each step in the program in more detail and what's necessary and how you even do it at your site. How would the energy policy be reflective of a car manufacturer versus a food manufacturer? We can get into those details with the training. So we can also provide customized training to your site. A great example of this would be if you feel you have, say, 10 out of the 25 steps covered, you've been doing them for years, and you feel comfortable with them. We can come in and say, okay, we won't talk about those 10 steps. We'll talk about those remaining 15 steps, and we'll really focus in on those 15 areas and how it relates to you for training purposes. Next, we have auditing services. And auditing services will be us coming in to find any deficiencies prior to the certification process. So we'll come in and ask a whole host of questions. Some of them will seem incredibly detailed, some will seem more broad, but we'll be finding any holes within the process. And again, just like the gap assessment piece, we'll be saying, okay, here is what's deficient in your say, energy tracking policy. And at this stage, we're not able to help you fully make those changes, but we're able to tell you where the deficiency is and then work with you once you've gotten something together to say, yes, that meets the definitions. As a couple of quick examples of who PennTap has worked with, we've worked with Volvo on their ISO 50001 certification. They were the first in the United States. They had a 25% increase in energy performance. So that's taking a look at those energy performance indicators. They saved a huge amount of money, almost $400,000 for the implementation to SCP, or that's how much they spent, but they were able to save almost $900,000. So there was a very fast payback period for them. They did a fantastic job with that project, and PennTap was lucky enough to work with them and help them along the way. So MedImmune is another company. They're based in the Gaithersburg, Maryland area. That they went for SCP certification in 2014. They were the first biotech company to work with it. There were over $1 million in savings per year, which is just a fantastic amount of money that they were able to save. And it was an 8.5% increase in energy performance. So that was a really great complex project to help them get to that state. So for General Dynamics, PennTap helped them with a low cost, no cost, and management changes that then worked towards almost $1 million per year in energy savings. And it was only a 6-month payback period. So over 3 years, they increased almost 12% in energy performance. And again, that was a fantastic company for PennTap to be to work with and help them move along their path. They had a strong desire for energy management systems, and we were able to help give them the framework and structure towards reducing those costs. So switching from energy management systems to more PennTap generally, PennTap is an organization within Penn State Outreach. And we're in two main groups. The first is the Energy and Environment Group, and the second group is the Innovation Group. I'm going to talk a little bit about the services for the Energy and Environment team right now. One of our main services is providing pollution prevention and energy efficiency audits. We like to call them P2E2 audits for manufacturers throughout Pennsylvania. We offer free assessments to help figure out what energy savings mechanisms are available for the site, as well as figuring out funding opportunities to help pay for these improvements. We work a lot with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the United States Department of Agriculture to get grants for our clients to help them have improvements cost them less and make better payback periods. Next, we have a program that's called the Economy, Energy, and Environment Program. And that's where we work with a larger facility to do an energy audit, and usually a more complex energy audit, as well as a continuous improvement expert. So we'll take a look at more of the process changes that could affect energy. And one great example is we recently did an E3 at a site that was working Saturdays. They were working weekends to meet their demand. And our goal with this project overall was to say, if we can get you to not work Saturdays, not only will you save money, but you'll greatly reduce energy usage, and you'll greatly benefit the environment in the area. So the whole focus was saying, let's get you to be more efficient the other 5 days of the week, so you're not working that 6th day. And that, I think, is a great example of what E3 is meant to do. Then for schools and municipal government agencies and municipal buildings, we have a program called the Building Retuning Program. It's a lecture and hands-on training opportunity that you go to about 4 hours of classroom training in a day, and then you get about 4 hours of hands-on walk-through experience through a real-life facility. So the training includes, we'll be looking out for how does boiler insulation affect a site, and then you'll physically go out to a site that has boiler lines that are both insulated and uninsulated and be able to walk through that process fully. In 2017, PennTap completed 79 assessments overall in the energy environment team, and we had $4.3 million in economic benefit. Now for our innovation team, the first project our innovation team is working on is helping leverage Penn State resources for businesses and community partnerships. Penn State has a wealth of resources, and the innovation team is really trying to bring those out to both student entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs outside of Penn State. One big key is almost no matter where you live in Pennsylvania, there'll be an innovation hub nearby. There are 17 currently located at Penn State campuses. So if you are interested in entrepreneurial support, take a look for the Penn State Innovation Hubs. We also work with the Learning Factory, which is through Penn State's College of Engineering. The Learning Factory is designed to bring real-world problems to seniors in engineering. The goal is to have that group of students work as if they were a consultant engineer on the project. And they can do a wide range of work, from ergonomic reviews to continuous improvement review to developing a prototype. One great example I saw recently was that for doctors working on specific surgeries, they need to wear lead vests for hours. And after a while, the lead vests result in large fatigue to the doctor, which is a terrible outcome for the patient. It reduces responsiveness from the doctor over time. So Hershey Medical Center teamed up with Penn to work on a learning factory project that allowed for that lead vest to be held from the top of the ceiling. And that way, there was significantly less pressure being put on the doctor, less physical pressure, so that they could reduce fatigue overall. So projects like that are fantastic to have these students work on. So some upcoming events later this week, or actually early next week, Penn will be at the Southwestern Pennsylvania Energy Efficiency Roundtable, which is in Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. The big focus there will be looking at compressed air. There'll be a compressed air expert at the site to take questions. So for more information on that, please see our website. And then there'll be another webinar from our innovation team about the entrepreneurship ecosystem at Penn State to help you work through those systems. As I mentioned, the innovation hubs will be a key part of that. Now, if anyone has any questions, I'd be free to answer anything. You are also welcome to send me an email at a later date at royal, R-O-Y-A-L, at psu.edu if any questions come up. At the moment, I'm going to just give a pause for anyone to ask questions as they come in. There should be a chat pad that you can see on your screen that you can just type any question into. So I'll give it about 3 minutes for any questions to pop up. Hi, Pranab, I'm sorry if I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name improperly, but it looks like you have your hand up. Are you able to send anything into the chat pad? Okay. And we did have a question from Lenny about how does PennTap relate to the Launchbox program? And I think the best answer to that is to take a look at our website and follow up with my coworker Tim Kurczynski. PennTap and the Launchbox work together quite frequently. Unfortunately, due to the level of working together, it's a little bit hard to answer your question specifically, but if you have a detailed question regarding PennTap and Launchbox working together, please feel free to send me an email and I will forward it to Tim to further expand on that. But PennTap and the Launchbox have a great relationship together. I think one of the best examples I can give is the Launchbox and PennTap have been working together a lot with student entrepreneurs and to help find them funding and resources to work together on their projects together to move forward. So unfortunately, Lenny, I'm not quite sure if you're referring to Launchbox for students or non-students. So if you don't mind following up with me with a little bit more detail, I can get you the answer to that question. Pranab, I have not seen your question quite come through the chat pad yet, but if you're having trouble with that, what I'll do is I'll follow up with you individually. I'll send you an email later today to follow up. I apologize that it's unfortunately not as quite as simple as just unmuting your line to ask that question. but I will follow up with you as soon as I can. If there are any other questions, please feel free to type them into the chat pad. Otherwise, if there's not a question in another moment, I'm going to shut down, and thank you all so very much for attending this webinar. And if any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. So, all right, with that, I'm going to shut down the webinar. Here is my contact information was up. Here is my contact information. So again, any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll have this posted shortly. Pranab, I saw your question actually came through a different way. So I apologize, I didn't see it other. How to do consulting for Penn Tap? I'll give you a call to discuss that in more detail offline. But thank you guys very much, and have a good rest of your day.